So welcome everybody to the Tel Aviv University's virtual open week, where we discuss several of our programs targeted towards international students. I think this program is a little bit different from the other programs in the week, just because the target audience isn't necessarily international students, or they might not be international students for long, because we're looking to attract to our electrical engineering program people that would rather spend their first year learning in English, some of the fundamental mathematical courses that are required for success in the electrical engineering program, while at the same time learning Hebrew, with the goal of ultimately being integrated into the regular Hebrew program of electrical engineering. So I'll get into more detail in a moment as to exactly what that is. But before I get started, I'll introduce myself. My name is Professor Brian Rosen. I am the Vice Dean of International Affairs in the Faculty of Engineering at Tel Aviv University. And I work very closely with the Laui International School at Tel Aviv on developing programs and making sure that students that come here from abroad, or those that make Aliyah, or those that are more comfortable to learn in English, that they have all the resources that they need. And joining me also is Professor Kobe Scheuer, who is representing the School of Electrical Engineering. And I'm hoping between the two of us, we'll be able to answer any professional or technical questions that you might have. So I'm going to spend about 15 minutes presenting the program, and I'll leave time for the most part for questions. So first, a little bit about Tel Aviv University. We're the largest university in Israel with respect to almost every metric, with respect to the number of faculty members, with respect to the number of faculty. We have about 150,000 alumni. This is actually a little old, so it's more than that at this point. Over 400 laboratories and 3,500 research projects annually with a 200-acre campus. Electrical engineering, or the School of Electrical Engineering, is actually one of the biggest schools within the campus. So a lot of the volume of students, particularly in engineering, is made up of electrical engineering students. I think electrical engineering makes up about half of the Faculty of Engineering, both in terms of faculty and in terms of students. So it's quite a large pool of resources, both from a faculty perspective and from a laboratory perspective. Tel Aviv University is consistently ranked among the best in the world with respect to innovation and startup companies. About a quarter of all Israeli startups come from alumni of Tel Aviv University. Compare that to 11% from the Technion, 6% and 5% from Ben Gurion and Bar Ilan University. And we're consistently ranked in the top 10 on an international scale among alumni of our programs who end up starting unicorn companies. These are companies with an initial valuation of over $1 billion. So a lot of these startups come from our engineering majors. And as I mentioned earlier, a large fraction of that are electrical engineering majors. On the left and right, it's two graphics of the same metric. Founders of US unicorns that came from non-US universities. And you see that both from engineering majors and from business majors, Tel Aviv University is at the top of the list. The graphic on the left is from 2023. The graphic on the right is from 2024. And this is a metric that we're very proud of, and one that we've been able to hold for the better part of the last decade. So a lot of this comes from our electrical engineering alumni. So now a little bit more focused about what electrical engineering is. I'm not sure the background that you have or how much you've thought about which field within engineering you're interested in, whether you're already selected electrical engineering or whether you're still considering other fields within engineering or even outside. But electrical engineering, briefly as possible, can be divided up into sort of 6 major segments. And these segments are all reflected quite strongly in the School of Electrical Engineering. You have devices and materials for energy. So power electronics and transformers and all the things that make our modern grid work efficiently and the materials that allow for those devices to work. Optics, photonics, and electromagnetism. This is Professor Scheuer's area of expertise, looking at using materials in order to manipulate light in order to accomplish various goals and tasks. Control systems and learning theory, microelectronics and nanotechnology, quantum communication and information, and signal processing and computer systems. Quantum is a big buzzword these days. Quantum is also sort of very large, and we have a lot of representation at Tel Aviv University with respect to quantum communication, particularly quantum communication integrated with different aerospace and space technologies. I'm not sure if you guys saw in the news, but a few days ago, Tel Aviv University launched out of the US a cluster of nanosatellites, 9 nanosatellites, launched all at the same time. And that's in addition to 3 previous nanosatellites that we launched in the last 2 years, which makes Tel Aviv University one of the leading academic institutes in the world and the leading in Israel with respect to satellite deployments and technologies of that sort. And these satellites are launched for all different types of reasons. The latest swarm of satellites was launched for making detections on cosmic radiation, both in our solar system and outside. But there's also satellites that's been launched with the goal of quantum communication research. And the hub and the control system for that is actually located on top of one of our buildings at Tel Aviv University. So we're quite proud of that. Electrical engineering, I'm hoping it's not a surprise for most of you, but the basis of the field is really around utilizing math and physics in order to make it useful for devices and systems. And you'll find that we're not unique at Tel Aviv University in our engineering program, where your first 2 years are really focused on the fundamental math and physics and to a certain extent chemistry and materials that you need to build the groundwork of understanding the core courses that you will take in your third and your fourth year, which will be very specific to electrical engineering. And that'll be relevant for the conversation later because the program that we're offering is to allow you to take 3 or 4 courses in courses that you would normally take in your first year as electrical engineering. So the courses that we're going to offer through this Olim integration program will be based on math and physics for that reason. As I mentioned, the School of Electrical Engineering is and will soon become the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering.
I think it already is. Sorry for the
Oh,
interruption.
it's already official. I can say it
Yes,
now. Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
So we're a School of Electrical and Computer Engineering, 56 professors out of about 130 faculty members in the entire Faculty of Engineering. So that makes up almost half. 1,600 undergraduates, 550 master's students, 130 PhD students. So this is a large unit, not just at the Faculty of Engineering level, but at the university level. We're talking about a very large academic unit with $10 million in research funding a year and 25 research labs and centers. So 25 research labs compared to 56 professors. Obviously, all professors are doing research of some kind, but not all of them require the infrastructure to actually require the building of a laboratory. And we are interfacing with aspects of electrical engineering in our daily lives. I think the most common is the cell phone, which we all keep in our pockets, that involves communication technology, electromagnetic technology, nowadays artificial intelligence technology through the camera, electro-optics, electronic devices, power conversion, and computer storage. So this is just one very common example of how electrical engineering is really leading the high-tech industry. So I'm going to skip these slides for the sake of time, and I'm going to speak about what exactly we're offering. What is this program? This program is meant, it's called the Olim track. It's a placeholder name. And as I'll mention later, although the track was designed and targeted for Olim in mind, it's actually open to anybody that stands and meets the acceptance criteria, which I'll get to in a moment. So the idea behind the Olim track is targeted towards students who are Olim. It's also targeted towards students that are considering to make Aliyah. Okay, so through the Ministry of Absorption, there's a special visa for those that are thinking about making Aliyah, but they're not quite sure. And they're able to come to Israel and get most of the benefits that a full Oleh would make, that a full Oleh would get. So it's relevant for them. But even if you don't fall into those first two categories, let's say there's somebody that's already been in Israel for 2 or 3 years or even longer. Let's say they've been here for 10 years, just to give an example. And for whatever reason, they feel like that their Hebrew is not good enough and they'd like to enter into our track because they want to learn during their first year in English. As long as that person met the acceptance criteria, in principle, that person would be able to join as well. So what I'm calling the Olim program is really what we'll say is a year zero program. It's a year before that you would be fully integrated into the School of Electrical Engineering as a full-time student. And during that first year that you're with us, while you're considered year zero, you're not going to be considered a full-time student in the Faculty of Engineering. Your affiliation during year zero will be with the Lawi International School, which comes with it a lot of advantages because they're able to give you a lot of resources and everything, obviously, in English. And your affiliation with the Lawi school is also a little bit bureaucratic because during the year zero, you're going to be taking two types of courses. You're going to be taking 3 or 4 courses in engineering that will be taught in English. And these courses are going to be focused on the fundamental math and physics that you're required to take, that our students take in their first year anyway. And this will be used as the acceptance criteria or as part of the acceptance criteria in order to be formally admitted into our regular Hebrew program. So in order to be admitted into the regular Hebrew program, not only do you need to succeed in the 3 or 4 courses that will give you in English, again, the math and the physics, but you'll also be taking very intensive Ulpan. Okay, you're also going to be learning Hebrew. And because Ulpan is quite intensive, that is the reason why over the course of an entire year, you're only going to need to take 3 or 4 technical classes because we want you to spend the time required in order to succeed in your Hebrew studies. So you're going to be learning Hebrew at the same time as you're going to be taking math courses, and it'll be your success in these math courses and in the Ulpan that will eventually allow us to decide to admit you into the regular track Hebrew program. Now, the question I'm sure a lot of you have, I'm not sure the Hebrew level of everybody that came to join us, but the question is, does it work? Okay, is taking intensive Ulpan for a year and a half or a year and a quarter, is that enough to get me to be able to succeed in Hebrew courses in engineering when I'm formally admitted into the program? And based on conversations and evidence that we have with similar programs around Israel, the answer is yes. Obviously, this is a very sensitive question that is specific towards the individual and based on their ability to learn Hebrew and how quickly and how comfortable they are. But we have a lot of evidence showing that for those that are able to succeed in these initial engineering courses, and they're simultaneously able to succeed in the Ulpan track that they will be on, that they have a very high probability of continued success in our regular program. And obviously, learning the Hebrew never stops. You don't need to be 100% fluent in order to pass the exam in Ulpan. And you'll see in the bottom of the slide, I reference level 5 or Hey. So level 5 is the level that, again, based on our evidence, we believe will get you to the right level of Hebrew learning in order to be successful in your studies in engineering. And the levels of Ulpan are split over a period of more than a year. Basically, you would start taking Ulpan the summer before year zero. You would take Ulpan the entire year zero. And then once being formally admitted into the program, in year one, you'll take one more semester of Ulpan, which would then bring you to this level 5. So admissions into the program is a two-tier process. There's the admission into the year zero program, which again, you're students not of the Faculty of Engineering, but rather of the Laui International School. So you would say tentative students during this year zero process. So is everybody here from the US? Eric, Sam, Eitan, Ari? Where are people from?
Yes, I'm from the US.
Yeah, I'm also from the US.
I'm
Yeah.
from Belgium.
Okay.
Also
So
from the US.
Okay, so for those of you in the US, you need to get on the SAT 700 in the quantitative and 650 in the verbal. Or if you take the ACT or some other standardized test, you need to be in the top 10% of the quantitative and top 15% in the verbal of some other national standardized test. And Samuel, that would be the criteria that's relevant for you in Belgium. You need proof of English proficiency, which is the TOEFL, and there's more information of exactly what the levels you need in English on the university website. And you need a grade of A, which we're converting as 90% in your math and physics classes at a level equivalent to 5 credits. So in Israel, in high school, you take a matriculation exam in 12th grade, and the matriculation exam is split up into different levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the level that you take is based on the number of credits in high school that you took in that particular topic. So if you took 5 credits of physics in high school, you would take the so-called 5 credits exam, and so on with math and other fields. So we have a unit at the university that will basically take your high school degree and will convert it into the equivalent of an Israeli matriculation certificate, as close as we can estimate. And on the basis of that, we would be able to determine whether you stood up to that criteria. So there's the standardized test, top 10% in quantitative, top 15% in verbal. There's the English proficiency through the TOEFL or some equivalent exam. Again, I'm not an expert on that, but all the information is on the Laui International website for the level of English that all the students need. Although for this particular crowd, at least 3 out of 4 of you, I'm guessing that's not a problem. Samuel, I'm guessing your English is also quite good. So I'm guessing that's not going to be a problem for anybody. And again, a grade of A in math and physics. Notice the and not or. All right, math and physics. And that'll be done by you submitting your high school credentials and it going through a conversion process. Okay.
Brian, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
The Ulpan, if I've been living in Israel for the last several years. If I test high enough on the Yale before I start the year zero, does that mean I could skip parts of the Ulpan or like come in a little bit more advanced? Like, how does that work? If I already
So,
have some proficiency.
so my understanding is that Ulpan is based on placement. If you've been in Israel for a few years, we're not going to force you to take Aleph Bet. Okay? But again, if your Hebrew is at a level that's high enough, you might consider just applying towards the regular electrical engineering program. That being said, if you feel like, okay, I have a basis in Hebrew, but I don't feel like I could survive an engineering course in Hebrew, then yeah, you would be properly placed into the appropriate ulpan. So that's year zero. Um, the second tier of the admission process is what I'll say is the one of the most important. And that's really the goal of all this, the integration into our regular program. And integration into our regular program is on the basis of your performance at Tel Aviv University, which is the best indicator. There's lots of discussion in the United States, in Europe, in Israel about what are the best indicators for success in undergraduate engineering degrees. Some people like the standardized testing, some people like the high school grades. People have all sorts of metrics. But from our perspective, the best possible metric for success at college level courses is success in college level courses. So those of you that over the 4 courses that you take, you get an average grade of 80 at least in those 4 courses, and no less than 75 in any individual course, combined with passing the Yael exam in Ulpan of the appropriate level. That represents the criteria in order for you to be admitted into the program. And once you're admitted into the program, you are no different in status than any other Israeli Hebrew-speaking student. Once you pass that hurdle, you are part of the regular Hebrew program with no exceptions. All right, so all of the criteria required to pass the courses and get a degree and all the requirements that are in the student handbook for our regular track students, you then become part of that group. And that's why this is an integration program as opposed to an English degree. English degree meaning that all 4 years are taught in English. That's not what this is. The idea is to get you integrated as quickly as possible. And we believe that this program represents the quickest possible way for you to be able to do this, while at the same time giving us and you the confidence that you need in order to know that you will be successful both from a technical perspective and from a Hebrew speaking perspective, that you know that you will be confident that you'll be able to succeed moving forward. So the content of the year zero is Calculus 1, Calculus 2, linear algebra, and classical mechanics. So next to Calculus 1, I wrote exemption for those who qualify. For those of you in the United States, if you've taken AP Calculus BC, you would get an exemption from Calculus 1 by most standards. But the reason why we really encourage people to take Calculus 1, even if they feel like they've seen some of the material before, is for 2 reasons. One, our regular track Hebrew students take Calculus 1 in the first semester in electrical engineering. And 2, the 2 classes are built to be streamlined together. So Calculus 2 is very much a continuation of Calculus 1 and relies on the material. So even if you feel like that you might qualify for an exemption, it's highly, highly recommended just to take Calculus 1 and get the easy grade, if you can say that about calculus. Linear algebra, a little more challenging, but a different set of math skills. And classical mechanics. Classical mechanics is the School of Electrical Engineering's way of saying physics. So it's kinematic physics that requires the math from linear algebra and calculus. And according to the heads of the acceptance committee at the School of Electrical Engineering, they say, Brian, if you bring me Olim or if you bring me students that can get high grades in these 4 classes, I have no doubt in my mind that they would be able to succeed later on in the program. And again, there's these 4 courses, but they're spread out over a year. So you would take, let's say, 2 in the first semester and 2 in the second semester. And along with 2 classes each semester, you again would be taking Ulpan in parallel. So it gives you enough time to focus and succeed on both the technical side and on the Hebrew side. Once you complete year 0 and are admitted to the regular program, you then have an additional 8 semesters, the regular 4-year course, or the regular 4-year curriculum. Now, because you've already taken the 3 or 4 courses in year 0, you might have a slightly easier time of it in the first year or even in the second year because you'd have 1 or 2 less courses to take. But we're still envisioning that it would probably be better for you to take it over the course of 4 years, just like a regular student would. So you'd have year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And starting from year 1, again, you're a fully integrated student where you take courses in mathematics, physics, computer science, engineering in your first 2 years. And in your second 2 years, you'll take specialization courses in electrical engineering. And in the final semesters in your final year, you would do a final engineering project, which is something that's required of all students in the Faculty of Engineering. So again, semesters 1 through 3, math, physics, and programming. We teach, Kobe, in which language do we teach in most of our programming courses?
So most of the course, so there are several level of courses. Most of the courses are being taught in Hebrew. The specialization courses, those who are what we call dual level, which means that the students that take them are either from the bachelor degree program or from the graduate students. So some of them are being taught in English as well, depending on the specific population in the class. There is a requirement, I think, that for 2 classes that will be taught in English, but since you took 4 of them, then you don't need to do that as well. So most of them are being taught in Hebrew. Some of the high-level courses can be given in English if needed.
So just to add on to what Kobe said, and thank you so much for bringing that up because I forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
Irrespective of this year 0 program, there are close to 20 to 25 courses, depending on the year. There are about 25 courses in the electrical engineering program that are taught in English in any case. Now, these English courses are typically year 3 and year 4 because from the perspective of Israeli students, they're coming after military service. They've sort of forgotten how to be a good student because they've had this 3 or 4 year gap since the last time they were students. So to have introductory first-year students taking university courses in their second language or sometimes even third language is not something that we like to do in Israel. But once they have 2 or 3 years of university study behind them, and we get to the more advanced specialized courses, as Kobe said, a lot of them are, again, irrespective of this program, taught in English in any case. And a lot of the specialization courses, again, you see at the bottom of the screen, specialization courses in the School of Electrical Engineering cover everything from Aleph to Taf. And it's really quite expansive. So we hope to see you at Tel Aviv University. Again, my name is Professor Brian Rosen. I'm in charge of all the international relations and the faculty. Professor Kobe Scheuer is here with me now to help answer any technical questions you might have about the program. And if you guys have questions about the program after this meeting, if the questions are related to internationality, visas, stipends, costs, housing, military service, things that don't have to do with electrical engineering per se, you can turn to the Laui International School, or if you don't know who to turn to, you can turn to me, and I'll direct you to the right person at Laui. If you have questions about electrical engineering, the program itself that I presented to you, or about the field of electrical engineering or the types of courses or the requirements, you can either ask Kobe here in this session, or you can turn to Professor Itzhak Tamo, who couldn't join us today, but for the sake of this program is going to be our technical point of contact for interested students. So with that, I'd like to open the floor to the four of you if you have any questions about the program, technical or otherwise.
Yeah, I have a question relevant to the requirements of the admissions
Okay.
into the program. Yeah, so it says SAT 700 in quantitative, 600 in verbal, but 90% in math and physics. So let's say I got a 1500, 1550 on my SAT, but my grades are maybe an 85%. What I'm asking is there an
Notice
acceptance?
the word or. It's or.
Right, I understand. I'm saying in terms of the math and physics and science at level quantitative to credit.
So the math and physics, you're talking about the third requirement at the bottom.
Can you cut it out?
You're talking about the third requirement at the bottom?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Eitan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You cut out for a second. You're referring to this third requirement at the bottom?
Yeah, exactly. If I have an
I thought you were
85
talking about the
average,
first one.
no,
So,
sorry. If I
so
had an 85 average, is there any kind of acceptance? Just wondering.
So the third requirement is related to your high school grades.
Right. I
So
understand.
it's 90% represents the grade, not the achuzon, not the no Kobe achuzon.
Well, the
Not the
percentage.
percentile, not the percentile.
Okay.
So if you got some high schools give grades based on letters, some high schools give grades based on numbers. If your
Right.
high school gives a grade based on numbers, we're looking for above 90. If your high school gives a grade
Right.
based on letters, we're looking for an A.
No, exactly. And that's what I'm asking. It says or 90% based off the number. Let's say I have an 85%, an 88% on my high school in math and physics, and it's slightly below the requirement. That's it. No longer qualified for admissions, not
So,
relevant to me.
okay. So we don't have this worked out precisely yet, but in our admission process, there is always what's called automatic admission, and there is um, sort of a chaliga. There is
There's exception.
exception, sort of an exception admission process.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you don't well, if you instead of a 90%, you have an 89% or an 88%, then my estimate is that you should apply anyway and ask for this sort of exceptional admission case, and we will consider your application holistically based on everything. So again, this isn't the official answer, but the unofficial answer, based on how we run our other programs here at Tel Aviv University, is that if you're 1 or 2% below, but you're really exceptional in everything else, that it's very likely that we would consider your application very strongly in any case.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a more general question
Okay.
about like the Olim track. Is that if you're doing the year zero as an OLED, this like very intensive upon and general math and engineering courses, is there any reason that you couldn't apply to a different BSc of engineering program instead of the engineering one or instead of the electrical one?
Right. So this program is developed with electrical engineering, and just last week it got approved also by mechanical engineering. So first of all, not every academic unit inside of engineering has signed on to this program. So that's the first part of your question. The second part of your question is every academic unit in engineering has the autonomy to set its own acceptance criteria. So if you started off in electrical engineering, but did not necessarily meet the requirements for admission after year zero, you could try to apply for mechanical engineering, but again, they have complete autonomy on the decision of whether or not to accept you on the basis of the courses that you took. I can't guarantee your acceptance from the outset. As far as getting admitted into a program other than mechanical and electrical engineering, so the other three units are industrial engineering, materials engineering, and biomedical engineering. They have not yet signed on to this so-called year zero track, and therefore admission into their program would be on a individual basis. You would take the courses that you took through year zero, and you would say to the head of the admissions committee, hey, I took these courses, I got these grades. Are you willing to accept me on the basis of these grades? And I can't give you an answer as to what they'll say. But if you do well in these courses that are meant to be taught to electrical engineers, which, let's say for the sake of argument, is the most challenging of the disciplines in engineering, and you do well in them, I find it hard to believe that you'd be turned away by another department. That being said, this is an unofficial answer, and every unit in engineering has the autonomy to make their own acceptance decisions. What I'm presenting to you now are the criteria for acceptance that have already been agreed upon within electrical engineering, and therefore I can say matter of fact. But every other unit is going to handle acceptance using their own methodology.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I do have some questions.
Yes,
So
Samuel.
if I got it right, year zero is in English, the rest is in Hebrew. However, some courses will still be taught in English, right?
Correct, because they're taught in English anyway.
Okay. And then a second question was, with your experience, are are people working part-time, full-time sometimes during the studies, or
So
it's
that's a complicated question, and I'll give a simplistic answer as possible.
Mhm.
Because Israelis, on average, are older during their undergraduate studies compared to students that are coming from around the world, they feel that there is a need in order to have like a part-time job on the side in addition to studying, because again, they're further on in life and they have different needs, and they're not 18 years old like a freshman in the United States. All right, some of the first year students in Israel are 22, 23. Our policy, although we can't tell you what to do, our policy is that for the first 2 years, we highly discourage having any type of job during your studies, not because we're trying to be restrictive or trying to be not nice, but rather because we know how challenging our program is. And we believe that students, particularly in the first 2 years, really need to focus their entire attention towards their studies, towards learning, towards success in their studies. So you asked about my experience. And I've had experience on pretty much every committee that the faculty has. And in my experience in these committees, I see the spread of success versus lack of success between students that are full-time and students that are trying to work in parallel to study. So it's really, I wouldn't think of it as a restriction. I would really think of it as a policy or a suggestion that we're giving to our students because we have our students' best interests in mind. So we don't have a formal policy saying that you're not allowed to work. But again, for these first 2 years, we highly discourage it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so I had a question in regards to admission. So I'm technically considered a sophomore in United States, and I do have classes in college level mathematics and sciences, and I was just wondering, will I still be required to take the SAT?
Did you take the SAT before getting admitted to the university? Are you a university student right now?
Yes.
So you took the SAT in order to get into the university.
Well, this happened a while ago because pretty
How
much
long ago did you take the SAT?
I have actually never took the SAT. I just placed into my classes that I had to get placed in.
Right. So, look, as I mentioned, I think most people at Tel Aviv University believe that the best indicator of success in university courses is university courses. So,
Okay,
depending on which courses you took and the grades that you got in those courses, if there's really no safek, if there's no doubt that you would be successful, I don't think the lack of the SAT would be a barrier. Again, that is an unofficial answer, but I've been at the university long enough to believe that that's probably what the case would be.
gotcha. All right, thank you.
Yep.
I also had actually another question about the tuition.
Yeah, this is very, very specific. That's why I don't have a slide about this. There's a few aspects of tuition. Um, Israeli students pay a certain tuition. International students pay a tuition that's slightly higher, about 20% higher, because of the overhead that's involved with handling international students. And it's also not our decision. It actually comes from the Council of Higher Education that we need to ask for tuitions that are slightly higher. For those of you that are coming from the United States, I can tell you right now, the tuition in Israel is peanuts. It's nothing. Your 4-year degree is probably one semester in the United States. I'm not sure what the case is in Belgium, but in general, the cost of tuition in Israel is quite low. Now, the reason why I can't give a general answer, and it's very specific, is because some of you might be making aliyah. And if you make aliyah, you're entitled to getting money from the Ministry of Absorption. You're also entitled, in addition to that, to getting money from the Ministry of Absorption for a discount on your years of study in Israel. And in addition to that, the international school might have scholarships for Olim. So for somebody that's coming to this program as an Oleh Chadash, so somebody who's actually making Aliyah and moving to Israel, between all the benefits that you'll get from the Ministry of Absorption and the university, um, the the program ends up being virtually free. You might actually make money. Um, for somebody that's already in Israel and might not qualify for those types of benefits or already got those benefits and they don't have the ability to use them because they've been in Israel for a certain amount of time and can no longer use that benefit, again, they would have to pay the regular tuition, but that tuition inherently is quite low. And I also want to differentiate between tuition in year zero, which will be slightly higher, um, and admission, sorry, take a step back. If you have a Israeli ID number, you are considered Israeli, and therefore you pay Israeli tuition, even in year zero. That's what they would ask of you. If you are considered an international student at the time of year zero, which is to say you don't have an Israeli ID number, then you would pay a slightly higher tuition. But again, most of this would be offset by various benefits. So the answer is yes, you have to pay tuition in year zero, especially if you're an Oleh or you're making Aliyah. I imagine that most of the tuition would be offset by the various benefits. But it's really a personal question based on somebody's exact circumstance.
Okay.
Do you have other questions? Okay. So I'm just gonna show this last screen again in case somebody didn't write it down or somebody didn't take a screenshot. Professor Yitzhak Tamo from Electrical Engineering can take additional questions that you might have. If you think of them after this session was recorded, So I will distribute it to the Laui International School, who will hopefully publish it to those that are interested. And my name is Professor Brian Rosen, and you can find me also on the faculty's webpage if you have general questions, not about the program itself, but rather about being an English-speaking student in Israel and the challenges that come along with it. As you can probably tell from my accent, I myself am an Oleh. I came to Israel 12 years ago from the United States, so I'm very familiar with the benefits and challenges of making Aliyah from an English-speaking country and integrating into academia in Israel, specifically Tel Aviv University. So if you have any questions along those lines, please feel free to contact me directly. So if there are no more questions,
Actually, I just remembered a question I had. Sorry, right at
yes,
the end.
no problem, Ari.
How does housing work for the year zero and the consecutive years?
So there's no differentiation between year zero and um, the rest of the years. We do have dormitories that are connected to the campus. The dormitories are in extremely high demand, and it's on a priority system. Now, if you are an Ole, my guess is that you will have a higher priority with respect to getting into the dormitories, at least for the first couple of years. Uh, Vast majority of our students don't live in the dormitory system. They come from Tel Aviv, or they come from central Israel, or they commute. So they have their own apartments in Tel Aviv or in the surrounding suburbs or other places in Israel, and then they commute to Tel Aviv. We have a very well integrated train system, and we're in Tel Aviv. The city is in the middle of building a light rail system, which will have direct access to the university. So, to answer your question in general, most students live in apartments not connected or affiliated with Tel Aviv University. That being said, we do have dormitories. They're in high demand. Demand is based on priority, and because you are an Ole or because you're part of this program, my guess is that you would be given a higher priority, and chances are we would be able to get you into the campus dormitory, at least for the first year or two.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I also have a question. I'm sorry I cannot switch on my camera, and I'm speaking
No,
on
it's
behalf of
fine.
I'm speaking on behalf of my daughter. She cannot participate today. So my question is about admission because her situation is quite, I don't know. So she didn't come from US. She came from Russia, and she has 11 years diploma. Uh, with all being said, I don't really understand if she might be accepted to year zero because
Wait, what when did your daughter finish high school?
well, actually she's finishing this summer,
In
but
Russia, is there a standardized exam?
uh, yeah, and she will get the diploma. But she's also already in Israeli educational system, so she's in Yud Aleph, and
So she's in
so
the Israeli educate. When did?
yeah, she
Sorry,
is.
I
Yeah,
you
it's
lost me.
confusion. I
She's
understand.
how long has she been in Israel?
She's like a couple of years.
So she did all high school in Israel.
Not all high school. She's in Yud Aleph now, so she will be
Okay.
finishing next year. But since it's year zero, and it's not, it's like Mechina as far as I
We're
understand,
not allowed
right?
to call it mechina for technical purposes, but
Yeah,
yes,
but
it's like mechina.
that's why I'm asking because she's already like she has a lot of bagrut already in school
So
this May, and
so when
yeah.
right, so the reason she's interested in this program is just to get her Hebrew up.
No, no, no. She's interested in engineering, and because you
No, but
have
she's
this program.
taking, she's in high school.
Yeah,
Sorry, she's in an English speaking high school.
no, she's in regular, but her Hebrew level is not enough,
Okay,
definitely. And she
okay,
doesn't have physics because she chose 5 Yehidot chemistry in school. This is the second reason. but she's very good at math, and she
Is she
also
taking is she taking five
yes,
yechidot in math
yes,
also?
yes, and she also yes,
Eva, if your daughter is
yes.
taking five yechidot in math and chemistry and physics and she gets good grades, I'm not worried about her. Don't worry
No,
about the SAT.
she doesn't have, yeah, she doesn't have physics at school. She has 5 yehidot chemistry, and she has 5 yehidot mathematics, and
Again, if she gets,
yeah.
again, it says physics/science. So if
Mm.
she's taking five
Mm.
yechidot in both
Yeah,
of these and gets a good
chemistry.
grade, I
Yeah.
don't think you have to worry.
So can she like apply for year zero, being in Udalif and having international diploma from different countries, I mentioned before?
Again, this is a very specific case. I think we're
Yeah.
going to have to take it as a case-by-case basis. Again, my unofficial answer is if she's taking 5 units of math and chemistry and she gets
Mm-hmm.
good grades, in
Mm-hmm.
addition to this international diploma that she already
Mm-hmm.
has,
Yes. So she can
together with the
apply.
English proficiency, my
She,
guess
she
is
will
that
pass it. Yeah, she will pass it. She like yeah, yeah.
Mm.
She will.
yeah, so my suggestion would be, because this is relevant only for 2 years from now,
Yeah.
that she gets focuses on getting very high grades in the 5 yechidot math and chemistry. But if she can do that, my guess is that she'll have a good chance to get into such a program.
Yeah, Brian, one thing that has to be said here, and this is true not only for people on these on this program, also for just regular students, those students who haven't done their matriculation test in physics needs to go through some kind of how do you call it? Some kind of an exam, okay, that shows their proficiency in physics.
And this is done the summer before the first year.
Yes, and
this
this
can be
is
done between year 0 and year 1.
true. So my guess is that she will have to go through something like that as well.
And again, what Colby said, Ava, it applies to everybody. It has nothing to do specifically with this program. This has to do with all regular track students.
But my question was actually, might she apply now this year, or she needs to wait until she
No,
finishes
she needs to
UBET?
wait. She needs to
Needs
wait.
to-
So based on 11 years school certificate, she cannot apply only when she has 12 years.
Correct. We are taking applications for students that will start year 0 in October of this year.
Okay.
And your
So
daughter would be starting Yud Bet.
yeah, but she also like she will have diploma from international school. It means that because she has 11 years, she cannot apply, right? She
Yeah.
needs to.
So
Okay.
your
Yeah.
daughter needs to finish Yud Bet, get the two
Okay.
bagrut,
Okay.
and then
And then she might apply. Okay.
Yes.
And the application process starts usually in spring, like right now,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Last minute? Yeah, Eitan.
Yeah, sorry about this again. I just want to confirm whether it's in or out, because let's say I did very well on SAT.
What's in or out?
No, the whole program as an option for me. I'm talking about the 90 percentage of the math and physics. Let's say you got an 85% or something that's relatively unacceptable, okay? Is there any way that you could maybe redeem some of those percentages points, or it's just the grades you got in high school, end of story?
There's the grades. Again, when you do not meet one of these criteria, you can appeal and try to get acceptance on exceptional condition.
So
if you didn't meet one of these criteria, you would try to apply for this sort of exceptional acceptance criteria. And when we look at a package that's requesting exceptional acceptance, we look at the entire package. All right, we look at, okay, so maybe you got an 88 in math, but on the quantitative part of the SAT, you got a 790. Okay.
No, of course. And I totally understand that. I'm talking about, is there anything I can do before, based off of this? Is there anything I can do before? Maybe I can take a course before, and that would also fit into helping me with some of the points in Achuzim, like.
If it is a university level course, that might end up helping, because when you take university level courses, we are able to try to do equivalencies. So if you got a grade of A, or sorry, if you got like an 85% in a high school calculus course, but you got a 95% in a university calculus course, then obviously we would consider
Okay.
the fact that you
Totally.
took this university level course.
All right, great. Sounds good.
But again, these are all great questions, but as I'm sure you all understand, they're questions that we need to take on a case-by-case basis. And I'm trying to give you sort of a general feeling as to what we're looking at when we receive applications.
Excuse me, one more question about English proficiency test. You mean IELTS or TOEFL by that,
Yeah.
or
So the
under
information required for the English proficiency test, that's not something specific to this program. That's for the entire university. And you can go on to the Laui International School website, and they have an entire page about the ways to meet the criteria for the English proficiency.
Okay, with the numbers like for IELTS.
With the numbers, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And it has nothing to do with this program specifically. It's university-wide.
All right.
So, Brian, would you recommend submitting the application to the Lowry School right now?
Yes.
Okay.
As opposed to.
Well, because I checked the website and it didn't actually have a specific date. It just said coming soon. So I was just wondering.
Okay. So I have that written in my notes, and I will speak with the Laui school to clarify when the application will actually be open, and I'll make sure to get back to you.
Got you. Thank you.
So,
Sí.
Eric, I'll get back to you specifically about that. Oh, we have somebody else. Do we? We have a Lopez. Okay. So if there are no more questions, I thank everybody for joining, and I hope to see you all at Tel Aviv University.
See you.
Take care.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.